As hundreds of thousands joined the jobless queue, the Prime Minister warned shutting down the economy was just as deadly as the virus itself. Labor disagrees and urgently wants tighter restrictions to save lives. I'm David Spears. Welcome to Insiders. It's been a week like no other. Desperate Australians, suddenly with no income, queued outside Centrelink offices as pubs, cafes, restaurants, retailers closed their doors. Tough new rules were imposed on everything from weddings to funerals. As of this morning, anyone returning to Australia must spend 2 weeks in isolation in a hotel room. The Army has been deployed to help police the new rule. And a pared-back Parliament passed an enormous rescue package in a matter of hours. As these dramatic changes altered life as we know it, the debate grew louder over whether it was even enough or whether we need more shutdowns and a whole lot more financial support.
Everyone's anxious, no one knows what's going on.
I'm at the stage now where I'm on the scrap heap because I'm 64 years old.
Until the start of this week, 12 million Australians had jobs.
12 years of perfect employment, it all blows up in 24 hours.
Already this week, 1 million of them have lost it.
I worked in hospitality and I no longer have a job anymore. I've got a wife and an autistic son to feed.
We gather today at a time of great challenge for our nation and indeed the world.
Pubs and our restaurants will soon be empty. And the sad reality is that people are losing their jobs.
For many, young and old, 2020 will be the toughest year of our lives.
We now expect the economic shock to be deeper, wider and longer.
We will give the benefit to the government. We are not looking for arguments, we are looking for solutions.
There will be more packages, there will be more support, there will be more issues that even now haven't presented themselves.
Bleak reality check tonight after
in a tragic 24 hours as the number of new cases continues to rise.
It is a very, very steep growth and it's very concerning.
From midnight tomorrow night, all of these following activities will no longer be taking place. Food courts and shopping centres, beauty therapy, tanning, waxing, nail salons and tattoo parlours.
It was confusing.
Amusement parks and arcades, cinemas, nightclubs, casinos, gaming or gambling venues.
There was the reading out of a list.
Fitness centres, yoga, barre, I hope I've pronounced that correct, I might need some help with that.
What we've seen tonight is an extraordinary curtailing of the liberties of Australians inside their own homes.
Stay at home unless it's absolutely necessary that you go out.
We have to get people to take this seriously.
The government needs to send a clear and simple message. The more people stay home, the fewer people who will die.
Labor believes more needs to be done harder and done earlier.
Well, be careful what you wish for on something like that.
Economic downturns can have dire social consequences, explaining why the government's determined to keep as many people working for as long as possible.
A crisis on a health front, which is also causing a crisis in the economy as well, and both of them can be equally as deadly.
Don't let this virus take hold, beat it.
We've gone hard and fast. To say that we've gone light and slow would be completely inaccurate.
This weekend, the challenge will be there again. Let's keep doing the right thing. Let's keep saving lives. Thank you.
And my guest this morning is the Finance Minister, Matthias Cormann. First, let's see what's making news. Government to pay workers' wages. It's been resisting the move until now, but the Australian Financial Review's John Keogh first reported last night the government is planning to pay a generous share of wages for closed and hobbled businesses that retain their staff. I've also confirmed the government is working on this wage subsidy plan along the lines of the model in the UK. It follows growing pressure from business and unions. It will cover 70 to 80% of wages, capped at a level that's still being considered. And here's the good news for those who've already lost their jobs over the last couple of weeks. I'm told this wage subsidy may also apply to them. The plan's still being finalised. It will be announced midweek. Private hospitals rush on elective surgeries. The 9 newspapers report private hospitals are rushing through cosmetic and non-urgent procedures before a ban comes into force on Wednesday. That's despite warnings it would further drain resources needed for the coronavirus pandemic. Some are apparently operating 24 hours a day. And mental health boost. This announcement is carried across the papers this morning. The Morrison government spending more than $1 billion to boost telehealth, mental health and domestic violence support for those forced to stay home during this crisis. Well, we've been looking at the overall number of cases each week, but it is worth looking in more detail at how Australia is going in tackling this virus. Are we making progress? And how do we compare to other countries? From today, Casey Briggs is going to bring us a quick snapshot of the most important data, appropriately titled The Curve.
We're tracking the latest coronavirus figures around Australia and the globe. Globally, as of around 8 o'clock this morning, there were more than 650,000 cases. That number is rising rapidly. Just last night, it was 50,000 lower. The US has more than a sixth of the world's cases. Australia so far, just a fraction of that, on 3,600. There are more than 30,000 deaths around the world. Italy, home to more than around a third of them, while Spain on 5,800. Those two countries both just recorded their deadliest day in this pandemic so far. Where are the Australian cases? Well, New South Wales continues to have the bulk of them, 1,600 cases, 685 for Victoria, 625 for Queensland. There are 14 deaths so far in Australia. New South Wales has more than half of them. How do we compare to other countries around the world? The US is on a very steep trajectory with 116,000 confirmed diagnoses, while Australia, right down here, is still at the very early stages of this outbreak. What's probably more useful to us at this point is to know what path are we on and where are we heading. So what we've done is we've shifted the scale of these countries so that they all start at the same point and we can more easily compare the trajectories. You'd much rather be a country like Singapore right now than in a country like Spain, while Australia is somewhere in between. So what else is coming in terms of restrictions to help flatten this curve? Well, as of midnight, all international arrivals to Australia are being forcibly quarantined in hotels for 14 days, while some of the states have started to go their own way in stricter restrictions. Tasmania and South Australia have both banned gatherings of more than 10 people, while New South Wales and Victoria are flagging much stricter stage 3 restrictions to help flatten this curve. Remember, this virus spreads if we let it, so wash your hands and keep your distance.
So that's a look at where we're at. One of the great difficulties here is the time lag between taking steps and seeing what impact they have. Banning mass gatherings, shutting borders, closing pubs and cafes and all this social distancing will undoubtedly help, but we won't know for a fortnight whether it's enough. And if it's not, well, by then it could be too late. That's why Labor has hardened its position this week, openly calling now for more urgent shutdowns to save lives, as we've seen in other countries. The Prime Minister, though, has equally hardened his resistance this week to a complete lockdown. He started warning of the equally dangerous threat to lives and livelihoods when people are forced out of work and forced to stay home. There are valid concerns here about domestic violence, suicide, and some kids completely disengaging from the education system. Weighing all these risks, it's not easy. These are huge calls. But it's not playing politics to question whether Australia has struck the right balance. This is a legitimate debate about the most crucial decisions this government is ever likely to make. Let's see what our panel makes of it. We're joined this week by James Campbell, Lenore Taylor and Mark Kenny. Very good morning to you all. Let's start on this big question, James. We'll get to the economic rescue, what's coming this week, but are we doing enough right now with the measures that are in place in terms of the restrictions?
The answer to that, unfortunately, is only time will tell. This is going to be a, excuse me, there's going to be very, very clear data at the end of this from every single country in the world. Did it work? Didn't it work? The answer is not clear also because there are now divergent numbers of deaths emerging in Europe from different countries who have done quite similar things. For example, the number of people dying in Italy is off the chart. Next door, Germany, there are so far, thank goodness, fewer than 100 people have died. They have a very similar smoking rates, very similar number of old people. Age demographics is almost the same.
But their health system?
Germany has more ICU beds, but it's not it's not 10 times as many or 500 times as many. The reality is that there is the data on this is very, very choppy from all around the world. And it does well to remember that this is only 3 months old. We won't get real data on what the death rate from this disease is, usually, as with pandemics, until afterwards. So governments are making decisions on the run.
And it is difficult, as I say. I want to show you the comments from the Chief Medical Officer, Brendan Murphy, firstly. He is confident that the measures we do have in place so far can be enough. Have a look.
We are very keen to put as restrictive measures in place without completely destroying life as we know it. If Australians all do the right thing with these measures and do exactly what the Prime Minister has said and behave completely differently and practice distancing at every point, that will achieve the outcomes that we want.
Yeah, so that will achieve the outcomes we want, the measures that are in place now. Now, clearly, Labor's Anthony Albanese has a different view. He is urging strongly this week that we need to go harder now.
Let this be our rule. If we think we're going to take action next week, we should take that action today. The last thing we want to do is to be looking back on this time in the near future and saying, if only we had done more and done it sooner.
Lenore, this is a difficult one. Anthony Albanese essentially urging an abundance of caution here. Put more restrictions in place now.